And we should be live here. And let's get that sound off of there because it sounds like it's coming in pretty good. Come on now, little mouse, you can do it. Of course, now it kicks out on me. There we go. Come on. And boom. Good. Hey, everybody. all the little things, but I think we've handled all the big things. So, welcome to our second call-in show. This is Critical Conversations, and I am joined this week by my beautiful wife, Melissa Huff.
Hello.
And we are coming to you from the sunny environs of Denver, Colorado on, what is this, the 13th of May, 2020. And I'm just putting all that out there for posterity. I mean, some of it's on the screen there. And as you guys can see, we have a nice big call-in number right there in the middle of the screen now for you. And let's see here. Notice the... Okay. All right. Well, we've got one call in the queue right now, and we are going to get to that. Yep. But first, I just wanted to throw a couple things out here in terms of the theme of the show, what I'm sort of talking about this week. I actually made a few notes about that. And oh yeah, and there we got the comments come flying in. By the way, hi Alex. It's amazing you stayed up for this. And welcome everybody else. I'm seeing Wyoming, Ohio, Toronto. This is awesome. All right, good. Yeah, much numbers is much more visible now. All right, so in terms of theme, you know, last week we did a little bit of From Here to Eternity. And, you know, just light fare, death, dying, you know, no big deal for our first show. So for our second show, I thought we might start out at least talking about or theming on here about choices. Choices we have, life choices. Now, I'm talking big picture stuff here, okay? This is something that Melissa and I have gotten to talking about. And often, actually, it kind of comes up because we want people to have, you know, good life choices, good lives. We want everybody to, you know, to get what they want, to be happy, to succeed. But the more you think about how, you know, we sort of conduct ourselves and the circumstances of how we are brought into the world and how our lives develop, you actually, once you start breaking some of this down, you start seeing that the choices we have are pretty limited, surprisingly so in so many ways. Again, big picture. I'm not talking about, you know, the choice of a Big Mac or a quarter pounder.
Right.
Although a lot of these factors that I'm going to talk about influence whether you're going to get a Big Mac or a quarter pounder or go to McDonald's at all.
It's true.
You know, whether you're going to be able to afford to go to Maggiano's for that second wedding anniversary dinner that we had yesterday here at home safely. Yeah. It was takeout. But whether it's going to be something classy and nice or whether it's going to be, you know, Mickey D's, some of these points are going to determine that. So I just wanted to put this out there as a little bit of food for thought. I'm not trying to stump on some position here or insist on some truth. I'm just sort of throwing some things out that I've been thinking about. So specifically, it's very interesting how the choices that are presented to us or are made for us before we're even born determine so much about the life course that we end up taking. And I think that it's actually really important that we think about and talk about this and recognize it for kind of the stark reality that it is, because it would lead to a lot more recognition and forward progress towards creating an actual equal playing field in terms of, you know, equality of opportunity.
Right.
Right? We're not big on equality of outcome.
No.
Because that gets really kind of difficult very quickly.
You can't really guarantee that.
No, but you can try to put opportunities there for people so that they can become the best person that they want to be. And how do we do that? Well, first we have to recognize that we are not all starting off on the same level or the same playing field, and sometimes very, very, very harshly so. America is the big American dream. You can do anything you want. You know, you can make anything of your life you want if you just work hard enough. I mean, I guess, but you know, if you start out,
you're in the lucky like 2%.
Yeah, well, quite honestly, if you start the race handicapped, you know, 20 feet back from the lead guy who's had all the opportunities and all the training, and you're back there coming out of the projects or the ghetto or just a lower income situation, you've got all kinds of problems. But this isn't just a rant about classism and money. There's all kinds of factors that go into this. So again, let me just throw these out as food for thought for you guys. Things that shape who we are right from the get-go. Yeah, like Tamara just said, like being born into the Church of Scientology, right?
Yeah,
just flashing up at the comments as we're going here. Things that shape who we are, which we have no control over whatsoever. Socioeconomic status. That's obviously first. Not necessarily first in importance, actually. It's just the first thing I thought of, but it's the first thing most people think of. Money. Lower class, middle class, upper class. Are you in the, oh, I don't know what the, you know, Indian classes are in India.
Yeah, I'm not sure what their caste system. Untouchables is like the lowest, right?
Yeah, if you're, but you know, if you're born into the Untouchables, then that's your life.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it's same actually equally for most of the other castes as I understand it, but again, I'm no expert on that. Okay, so socioeconomic status is one. Your color of your skin, right? Shouldn't necessarily have anything to do with who you are, and yet, let's be real, of course it does. Race is a factor. Location is a factor. Where you're born, where you grow up. You know, you might be born in Russia, but you might move to the States by the time you're 1.
Right.
So it's all, you know, it's location of birth, location of where you grow up. Culture, what culture you're part of. What language you speak. And language is, oh, somebody says the Indian caste system was abolished many years ago.
Huh.
That's not what I read, but okay. I somehow wonder whether that's actually...
Maybe it was abolished, but is still sort of there, kind of like how we don't have a class system.
Right. I'm just going to be a little skeptical that there's no caste influence in India's culture these days. But, you know, I'm not trying to be super, super right. I'm just saying I'm skeptical. Okay, school. What school you go to. Now, school is not just education. School is the quality of the education, the location. What are the in-groups? What are the out-groups of that school? You don't have any control over that. You know, when you get in there, you've got this culture. You're going to have to, this little mini culture that you're going to have to adapt to. Every grade is different. First grade's different from second, third. I mean, I remember that much.
Yeah.
You know, so social standing changes. If you change schools, you get another chance to hit the reset button a little bit, stuff like that.
Reset, or you like totally lose everything you had from the other school.
That too. Yeah, you can gain or lose. What's that? I think somebody's got a hide or show. Oh yeah, that's only up on that screen. Well,
they say officially abolished, maybe locally practiced in some remote areas.
Yeah,
I'll have to look that up.
Officially abolished. I tend to think these things die slow deaths. I'm not saying it's a bad thing that they abolished the caste system. I think that's great. I just think they die slow deaths culturally, kind of like racism in America. Okay, let's see. So school, right? The in-groups, out-groups, etc. Early after-school activities that you're going to take part in. Generally, not much choice there. A little bit, maybe. But generally speaking, I wasn't consulted too much on whether I wanted to hang out at the Y as my after-school babysitting activity. Or whether I wanted to take swim class when I was 4 or 5. I mean, I enjoyed it. I'm not saying it was a bad choice, but it was out of my hands is the point. Who your parents and all your relatives, right? They're going to have a tremendous impact on your life, especially your young life, especially your crazy aunts and uncles. Sometimes abusive relatives, which unfortunately is all too common, can vastly change the course of the trajectory of your life, you know, trauma, stuff like that. Of course, the first thing I do when I bring up family is, you know, go immediately to the dark place. Of course, all the positives of your family also apply too. The people around you who you have as the pool to make friends with. That's a thing.
I kind of think that gets bigger now, though, with the internet. You can kind of make friends with a lot of people.
Oh, yeah. Stream choices that you make that are given to you based on the area and where you're born. Yeah, exactly. Somebody left a message about that. Okay, so again, the pools of people you're going to make friends with, you ain't got no choice over that. Those are the people who are going to be your friends. Of course, you know what I didn't put on this list? I can't believe I didn't do it. Religion. What religion you're introduced to?
Oh, yeah, that's a huge one.
First on, right? If any. That's out of your hands. If you're born into a Christian, an evangelical family, guess what? You're probably going to grow up and be evangelical.
Yep.
Or whatever, Muslim, Christian, whatever, right? Okay, weather. Don't have any impact, don't have any say over that whatsoever. And big, disastrous weather situations could affect, your life early on. Or later on, actually. Most of these things apply. I mean, I'll focus on young life, but really most of this applies to the whole spectrum of your life. All this stuff is out of your hands pretty much your whole life. And genetics, of course. You got zero choice as to whether you had mutated genes, problems with your endocrine system, problems, brain lesions, like epilepsy, stuff like that. L. Ron Hubbard and his temporal lobe epilepsy. You don't have any, you got nothing on that. Those are the cards you're dealt with. And a lot of us tend to recognize genetics as a big factor, the hand you're dealt. But we don't think about a lot of this other stuff. At least I haven't had conversations or seen things where it tends to show that all of these factors are taken into account. And then you have, so basically the analogy that I made for you D&D, folks out there, who I think is probably a lot more people than people think. Your character sheet basically is half filled out for you, 3/4 filled out for you before you're even born, before you're through your first year, So think about that a little bit. Like I said, just kind of something I wanted to throw out as a little bit of something to think about, talk about, look at. Melissa and I have spent quite a bit of time talking about this stuff. And what do we do to try to deal with this? All the entitlement programs and various things we have in the U.S., of course, have dealt with various parts of this. But somehow it seems to me that there's that we need to get this across better in the just the way we look at addressing the societal problems, and the individual versus the society and aberrant individuals and all kinds of things, and opportunity again. How do we provide equality of opportunity? Well, we have to recognize that, some of these things are just going to keep a person down if something isn't done to give them a helping hand. And there's a lot of helping hands. Again, this is just kind of food for thought. It's not some condemnation of the entire system we have now, or it's all horrible and it all must stop. It's no, I'm not saying that at all. We've got a lot of this stuff we've been spending years, decades trying to deal with and help people out. And there's charities and there's institutions and all kinds of things. But are we doing enough? And have we achieved the goal yet? Probably not. So there you go. I don't know. What do you think?
Have we achieved the goal?
Yeah.
No. I think we work on it, like you said, but I just think there's so much more work to be done. And I mean, they just, like, I know, because, my uncle's on disability, and it's like they give these guys raises every year for the Social Security. But the raises are like 1% to 2%. And you're like, are you serious?
Yep.
Stuff like that, those little things where you're like, we could be doing better.
Yeah. Exactly. Let's take a call.
Okay.
We've got 2 in the queue, so let's do it. Okay, we are going for Chris Clay, I believe. Says, what I have written here from the auto, when you call in, you are auto-screened. there's this wonderful little function, but it's a voice to text function and it's sometimes has interesting interpretations. Yeah. All right, so let's see what this is here. Let's welcome our first caller. Hello.
Hello.
Hi, is this Chris Clay?
Close enough. Just call me Chris.
Chris. Okay, good. That's what I got on the screen. Okay, good. So welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. It's an honor. It's a pleasure.
Excellent. So how can I be of assistance this evening? What would you like to talk about?
You know, and I feel terrible because now I feel like I'm off topic.
Oh, not at all. I throw this stuff out, but I know we can move on to other things as well and come right back to it. So don't worry about that. What you got?
Okay, good. Good. So my question was about the free zone and kind of some of this infighting that's going on. That
sure.
Yeah, I don't know if that makes sense, right? I don't, right. I'm trying not to be super specific, but I think there's a lot to be said about just people fighting, right?
Yeah. It's unfortunate. I talked about in the when I first got out. Let me actually just kind of go back a little bit to give some context to my experience with this. Because that's really all I can speak from. I got out 6 years ago, 2013. Hit the social media scene, the community, that sort of thing, right? And saw conflicts, saw personality conflicts, but not, and then learned slowly because I was really pretty self-absorbed when I first got out. I mean, I was all about trying to figure out what the hell just happened to me, and I wasn't all about community and trying to figure out who hates who. That wasn't any part of my agenda when I first got out. So it took me a little while to start to meet people, figure out what was what, who the players were. And
okay.
And my first effort was, kind of Rodney, can't we all just get along? Why is anybody fighting here?
I totally agree with you on this, and just as a nobody, kind of looking at some of this stuff that's happening, and there's people attacking Leah Remini and Mike Rinder, who are huge figures in the fight against Scientology, right? They are. Everybody knows them, and they're doing good things, and everybody sees this. But yet, for some reason, there's people out there who may or may not be ex-Scientologists that want to argue with that for some reason. I thought that everybody was on the same page here.
I thought so too for a very long time, and I unfortunately was, that view was sort of debunked over time. And here's what I come to learn, right? Because I had the fortunate experience of, kind of expanding beyond the Scientology, ex-Scientology community when I also got involved with the JW community, the ex-Mormon community through the Three Apostates when I met Lloyd Evans and Jonathan Streeter and started doing shows with them. And what I found in getting into those Facebook groups and social media groups was the same thing. And I went, oh, I get it. People are people.
Okay.
And so I realized that this idea of unity is definitely something I push and want. But I've given up on the idea that everybody's going to be on the same page because, like society, it just doesn't work that way, And people come into Scientology specifically from all different walks of life, all different areas. So they're going to have lots of different backstories and lots of different attitudes and ideas coming into and out of Scientology than everybody else.
Chris, you're a wise man. I've followed you for a long time, and I appreciate what you do. You're very smart, and thank you for that. The only other question I would have, I had it in the back of my head here. I'm trying to remember.
Sure. Well, let me make another point while you're thinking about that, because I'd like to hear what you have to say, but I also want to make this point to you and everybody also, which is the additional factor with the former cult member communities, which I tried to make in my Q&A answer this last week, was you're dealing with trauma survivors. And you've been to trauma survivor groups.
Yeah.
You know, Scientology or
Sure,
not.
sure.
Right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, right. No, absolutely. And I think, well, even watching, I think anyone who watched Leah's show watched Trauma Survivors.
Exactly, exactly. And you're watching damaged people. Now, I'm not saying mentally ill people. I'm not saying people who are beyond recovery or anything like that. I'm saying that you're dealing with trauma survivors.
Yep.
And their approach to problems and human relationships and communication can sometimes be a little difficult, you know? I know I've certainly been difficult with people behind the scenes, you know?
That ties, right, and that ties into my last thing. It seems like those people, the ones that can't be just normal, agreeable people, like, okay, man, hey, you know, are the conspiracy type people, the almost, you know, I don't want to say it or even, you know, but the flat earthers or the, you know, the whatever. It's just everything's a conspiracy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And those types do exist as a fringe. Even it's funny. Scientology's a fringe group. You have this fairly extremist fringe group that's actually pretty tiny. You then look at the ex-Scientology community, and it's not big. The ones who are in touch with each other and are talking about it, not who haven't just, you know, dropped the whole thing and moved on. And even in that little community, the conspiracy guys, the ones who are really problems, the ones who really have a hard time getting along with everybody else, tiny little percentage. You know, small number of people make a lot of noise.
And that's true. And you know, maybe that's just their training, right? Maybe, you know, who knows?
Yeah, who knows? And I feel for every one of them. I feel for everybody who comes out of Scientology or any of these cults. And I know how tough it is.
I do as well. I do as well. Yeah, oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think we're on the same page with that. Chris, I won't take up any more of your time. Thank you so much.
Absolutely, man.
I really appreciate it. It was great talking with you.
You bet, man. Talk to you. All right. Drop that call. And we've got another one in the queue. So let's go ahead. This being a call-in show and all, let's go ahead and do that one. Oh. How we doing on the... Oh, there was some kind of a super chat there.
Oh, nice.
What have we got there? Wow. Oh, hey, very nice. Thank you very much. Also, I will comment. So I saw one comment about my haircut.
I didn't see that one.
This was the COVID haircut disaster. This was the self-inflicted trauma that I gave myself a couple days ago, and then a little repair job done on it, and this is what you get. So yeah, yeah. Okay, let's go. Thank you very much for that super chat. All right, let's see this. Chase Gray, opportunity tonight at the States for people for the grass today, or okay, probably some mistranslation here. So let's see what Chase says here. All right, and are you hello caller, Chase?
No, it's Joyce.
Joyce. Of course. There we go. Hi, Joyce.
and that was all garbled. So whatever that was, I don't know.
Awesome. Well, how can we welcome to our show, and how can we be of assistance this evening? What would you like to talk about?
Yeah. You know what, you guys, I'd like to talk a little bit about what you said earlier, choices, and particularly about the choices we make, and this whole idea of what I see happening in America now. I'm in Canada. I'm an American living in Canada for the past 8 years, and I'm watching.
I'm somewhat envious,
American
by the way.
I know it's very safe up here. I crave for my country, but I will say, like, as I watch what's happening, and you know, I grew up. I'm 57 years old, and this idea about if you just work hard enough and you do the right things, etc., you'll get ahead. And I'll tell you, in my day, that was actually true. You know, I came up from a family that was well under the poverty level. My father was in the military, but it was before Reagan. We made no money. We lived in condemned buildings. It was terrible. But if you worked hard enough, I went to a mediocre school, university. I had mediocre grades, but I was able, with decisions I made, to actually pull myself up into a very nice place in my life now. But I look at my young nieces and people coming up now, and it's not true anymore for them. I don't think you have the ability anymore because it's become so polarized. And yet I see Americans don't actually believe that's true anymore. That, that they still believe in that if you just work hard enough. But everything now seems stacked against people. And I'm just curious to know, like, how do we help? How do we help people to know that getting into the 1, 5, 10, 50% is really a hard slog, regardless of where you came out, right? Or regardless of the circumstances. So if you're unlucky enough to be born a person of color under the poverty line, you almost have no hope anymore in the United States. So, like, I'm curious to know how we change that thought that was indoctrinated to me as a child, that you can be anything, do anything, just work hard enough. And if you fail, it's your fault. If you succeed, it's almost a cult-like mentality. If you succeed, it's because you're in America. It's an odd thing that I see happening, and it breaks my heart. And I'm curious to know, like, what's your thought on that, and how we actually try to help people indoctrinate a different belief in the United States at this point?
It's a great question. Yeah, like a commenter here is saying it's really good. And my experience growing up, because I'm 50, so I'm kind of I'm just behind you. I remember
you're almost a decade behind me, but it's I'm teasing.
When I was in school, I distinctly remember an English class taking up the American dream as a theme for about half the year. I mean, a full semester I think we spent on that, reading stories, talking about it, listening to songs even. Was it a part of your education?
Like
what the American dream is?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Joyce. I was asking.
It was a part of my...
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. Go ahead. No, Melissa.
Yeah, I was asking Melissa.
Yeah, I mean, that was definitely part of my education.
I'm trying not to watch the screen. Because
of course.
Go ahead.
I mean, especially like being in theater and studying like Death of a Salesman and stuff like that, It's just like, the American dream, it was like,
right.
We're going to have it. We're going to do it. You can do it. And,
So it was still being taught at your point. And then, Joyce, you also had it covered in school at some point?
Well, yeah, I don't know if it's covered in school as much. It was just I was born into it. Being in the military, I don't know. It's just born into it. It was never, and even when I came to Canada 8 years ago, I was still a loud and proud American. And I thank God I lived here. It made me a kinder, gentler, more encompassing person. Because even as long as 8 years ago, I still believed, well, if you just work hard enough, stop complaining, get out there, until I really realized that, like, really, things are stacked against people. And that indoctrination is really significant.
It
so
is.
I don't know where I got it from. I had it. And I had it up until probably my late 40s.
Yeah. The reason I asked about education is because that's where I learned all about it. And I thought it's a place, school is a place where we can indoctrinate and not expect thinking to occur, or we can teach,
right.
And we can expect thinking to occur. Right. And it's honestly, it's a little bit of both, because especially in the early years, you're not inviting students to think about, you're indoctrinating them in multiplication tables and how to read and stuff like that. But once you get to the older years, you really should start working this over and looking at it from a more critical point of view. And I think this really all goes back for me. If I was going to try to bring it down to solutions, teaching critical thinking, I don't mean it as like some panacea for every problem, but I have a hard time thinking of some problem that it wouldn't be helpful for.
I totally agree.
To go in on that harder. And so I would have loved, and maybe actually, I can only remember so much. It's difficult also to, we look back on our schooling with our history, with all the things that have happened to us. And we forget that when we were in school, we didn't have all those experiences to compare it with, Because I was just thinking about, like, how could you think critically about the American dream when you haven't had a job yet? When you haven't gone out into the workforce yet, so I think maybe kind of I think more along the lines of maybe we should kind of give up on this American dream thing and start coming up with better stories for our kids, about how they're going to integrate into society and how that actually looks.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I totally agree because I think sometimes, and I watch, and this is where I see some of the division happening, that there's still, because it's so, I don't know, it's taught to us, it's almost inbred. It's almost an inbred thing in some of our families. I know it was in mine. That even though we were poor and we were being taken advantage of at every step by our government, my father being, I said, was in the service, and we lived in poverty, but it was still inbred in me as a kid. So I think that's still happening. And I watch poor people in the United States, people who, and they're supporting things that actively work against their own interests, because they think somehow, if I just keep trying, if I still have hope, if I just pay the lottery, if I just, I'm going to make it big.
That's right.
Without ever waking up to say it's never going to work, and those people are taking advantage of you.
Exactly.
That's the piece.
I agree with that.
I don't know. I don't know what that answer is, but it's what, when people ask you in business, what keeps you up at night? As an American, what keeps me up at night is like, what's going to happen? Because the majority of people are still thinking that, and they're never going to get ahead, and they're actively acting in their worst interest.
That's right.
And what do we do to save our country, right? From that perspective.
Exactly.
Which is a lofty thing. I don't expect an answer to that. It's a thing we have to. It's a thing we have to ponder. I think it's worth pondering as a society.
That's right. I will agree with a commenter earlier on this as well. A point I was going to bring up was the disparity. If I have the charts and graphs that I've seen right, and I'm remembering this properly, I think it was in the 60s, late 60s or early 70s maybe, when the inflation rate and the rate of increase of salaries started taking a very divergent path. Salaries were keeping up with inflation, and then suddenly they weren't. And, and that was, I think, a very, very, very important part of this whole picture too. I don't even pretend to understand why that happened. I mean, I can imagine shadowy figures in dark, smoke-filled rooms, twirling their mustaches. But I think it's probably a little more complicated than that. But I think that's also a factor in why this American dream kind of died, and became a nightmare.
Well, and we put debt on people the minute that they turn 22, basically.
God, yeah, student loans too. That's a whole thing.
Stuff like that. You can't get ahead when you've got that much debt going on.
Exactly.
Melissa, I totally agree with that. Because it didn't used to be. I graduated in 85, and I had debt. I had student debt, but I could pay it off in 10 years. You can't pay it off anymore. You just can't. You couldn't even get there. I couldn't even get there at this point. If I had the same grade, same whatever, I would never even be able to have the life I have now. Never.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right?
And I mean, my dad did the GI Bill.
Right.
He didn't do student loans. He did the Navy.
Yeah.
And
yes.
that was actually a better opportunity at the time. Managed to stay out of Vietnam at the same time too. All right, Joyce. Well, thank you very much for calling with this and talking to us about it.
Yeah. Listen, Chris, I've been following you for years. Love you. I'm one of your Patreon supporters. Melissa, great to see you and meet you.
Oh, thank you.
I just love watching you guys. So thank you so much.
Thank you for calling in, Joyce. You're awesome. And thanks for your support.
Okay. All right. Sure. Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye. All right. Got a couple more guys in the screen here. And, okay, good. So we're going to go to Nick, I believe, here. I think he wants to talk about something with atheism. But at first, I wanted to acknowledge PZ on your super chat. Thank you very much. And you did ask a question, so I will answer it. What is the Mark Bunker election victory in Clearwater? Tell us about the strength of Scientology in the city. It tells us that they are tiny and they do not have the voice that they think they have, or that they are constantly clamoring that they have. And they are not able to swing elections in Clearwater. Mark Bunker and I, by the way, did a podcast on this just a couple weeks ago. So check that out, because we actually talked about that exact thing. And thank you again for your super chat. All right, let us go to Nick here. Nicholas. Click that talk button. Hey, are you
Hi.
there?
Yes, I am there. Can you hear me?
Awesome. I can hear you.
Awesome. So, first of all, I do want to say that I do appreciate your take on atheism and what you're doing on YouTube, because it's really good to see somebody who's an atheist who is actually, rational and logical. And because I do have a little bit of a problem with atheism. I myself am agnostic.
Hmm.
A lot of what I have a problem with is, well, one of the main things that turned me off of atheism was that whole Sam Harris debacle. How Sam Harris had been just savaged by his fellow atheists. It seems to me that a lot of atheists have not, and this applies to people in every group, but I think there's a lot of very loud, angry people within atheism who have not dealt with a lot of their childhood trauma, a lot of their own beliefs, and it feels like if this is your only one life, it feels like a person should cherish themselves and this life a lot more, and then promote that compassion, promote that sense of value that life has. And I don't see that too much on social media in regards to atheism. It's getting a little better now to a certain degree, but I really think atheists have shot themselves in the foot, so to speak. Not just because of like prior behaviors, but like even now, you get a lot of the atheists that I've met have been just as irrational and closed-minded as a lot of the Scientologists or JWs that I've met, and I find that kind of disturbing, because if you're because to me, being an atheist is you look at the facts, you are objective, and you remove your emotion from what the objective world actually is. You don't, it's like again, I bring up the Sam Harris issue.
Right.
He went after Islam, which is a perfectly good, healthy, normal, decent thing to do, and he was just excoriated by so many, and it was just like I mean, I'd rather have atheist neighbors than Muslim neighbors, but at the same time, it's like, what would be your suggestion to the atheist community and individual atheists in order to start kind of like pushing forth that viewpoint of this one life that a person is living, that it is very precious, and that you should be doing the best for yourself and for your community? Because I just don't see it online. I just don't see it in a lot of atheist communities. And I'm just kind of wondering, where's that compassion?
Fair enough. So let me address this. Couple of thoughts. First off, group-wise or movement-wise, or however you want to put that, you have stages. Sociologists can probably talk about this more intelligently, but I know that you have stages. You have like, groups form up, and then they start going, and they got causes and things like that, and they go through their growing pains. By the way, I want to thank Joyce and Tamara for your super chats. Thank you very much, guys. Always love acknowledging that. So I always want to take time to do that. The early stages are a fight for survival. I have talked, and atheism in America has definitely had a fight for survival. In other countries, it has been a literal fight for survival. I mean, people get killed for their atheism in some parts of this world, so atheists in some places are literally taking their life into their hands by calling themselves an atheist. That's a little rough, and that's and we push back on all that kind of stuff quite a bit. in any group, right, you're going to have a spectrum of membership of people. And I think, the silent majority, that kind of thing. Even amongst the atheist community, the ones you don't hear from are the biggest part of the community, actually. They're just not interested in the activism part or in making a YouTube channel or in arguing with theists about it. They just don't really care. So you don't get a full representation of the full spectrum of the atheist community with just one or two or three people, even prominent people, because if there's one thing atheists don't have, it's leaders. We have atheist celebrities.
Yeah.
Sam Harris being one of them, the Four Horsemen, all that kind of stuff, right? But it's not like it. That's why I get to, say, hey, look, there's no culty stuff going on here. But the other thing I wanted to say, in addition to the kind of fight for survival that atheism is going through, is you're also dealing with, as you mentioned, and I know you're aware, some of these folks are trauma survivors. And, when I use that term, it's not a pass for bad behavior. It's an attempt to understand why the bad behavior is happening, so that you understand that it's not, a black-hearted evil bastard who's, saying these things. It's somebody who had actual things done to them, didn't appreciate it, woke up one day and went, oh man, that sucked. And then decided to start doing something about it. And not like me, because I kind of purposefully made myself a little different at the beginning with the whole critical thinking, rational, let's follow in Carl Sagan's footsteps kind of approach. That's how I chose to start, because I realized that would have the longest term value. But I understood why Amazing Atheist exists, or some of the people who aren't even around anymore who were doing videos, who were some pretty hardcore dudes. I can't remember their names. There was Dark Matter something or other, and there was some other guys who were really hardcore, like they were just like, if you're a theist, if you believe anything, you're just an idiot and scumbag and horrible and awful. And you go, okay, you're going to have a certain percentage of people in any community who are going to be that way. And they tend to also be the loudest, So they invite controversy. In a way, here's how I've thought about it. Let me know what you think about this. Any movement has to have its firebrands. It's people who are so out there, so black and white thinkers, so dedicated to the cause, that they'll push it forward through anything. We don't necessarily like those people to exist all the time because they do horrible things. But any movement kind of has that end of the tip of the spear kind of thing. And the rest of us kind of follow along and go, okay, you blaze the trail and we'll follow along and pick up the pieces behind you that they leave. The David Silvermans of the world and Sam Harris at one point. I think he himself has chilled quite a bit over the years. And those are the guys who are still around, who still last, are the ones who kind of chill because they get it out of their system. That's what I've observed, at least. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I mean, I can certainly understand that there's a need and a place for that. But one of my issues is that I see, especially on social media, it's just attacking people who really don't need to be attacked. It's like their energy would be better spent on bigger targets, larger targets. I mean, it's like you'll have, when I first got on YouTube, I would make videos on spirituality. I was coming out of Christianity. I was trying to understand that stuff. And I had people, I had people just coming at me like left and right. And it's like, I'm a nobody. I'm still a nobody. I still have people coming, atheists, self-proclaimed atheists, on my back with stuff I said back in 2005. And it's like, I'm a nobody. And it's like, well, why aren't they going after people like Kenneth Copeland or people like, I forget the name of that one guy with the church who wouldn't let anybody in during a hurricane or whatever. But I mean, there are legitimate targets who should go in after. But it's like, I get it that it's easier to go after somebody who's not going to really put up a fight. But at the same time, it's like, I mean, I do to a certain degree believe that there's something beyond death. I don't know how to define a lot of that stuff, but
totally.
It's like I have this. I mean, I have compassion for people who are atheists, but I really wish that a lot of them would work through their trauma. I mean, I've done the work to work through my own trauma.
I hear you, man.
Work on having
I hear you. Well, one of the things is them doing what they're doing on your channel, for example, is them working through their trauma in a way. Again, I'm not trying to give anybody a pass for bad behavior. I'm just trying to tell you. I'm just, And when you put yourself out there, you become a target. You know that, right?
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah.
But I'm just kind of wondering what I can do to like help, because I'm a free speech advocate. I like free speech.
Yep.
I'm completely opposed to this cancel culture nonsense. I think there's some great atheists out there now. There's Apostate Prophet, I think is his name. There's another one, Shannon Q. There's other podcasters that are atheists doing podcasts. And it's like a second wave of atheism that is a lot more logical and rational and calm and compassionate.
Yes, that is correct.
But it's like there's still that hardcore, they're the loudest ones. And it's like they end up doing more harm than good. And it's like, how do I, if it's even my responsibility, which to a certain degree it's not, but how do I help those people? What should my response be to those people? Just be like Buddha and just like let it wash over me and just be compassionate?
Yeah.
Or do I need to just like pick up a stick every once in a while and smack them on the side of the head? I don't know. I mean, it's
well, I'll tell you what I look at it from when I'm at my most rational and objective, and that is to be chill. If somebody's truly trolling your channel and you don't respond in any way or give them any ammunition, they go away. We know that. Because they're just looking for a rise out of you. Other people who are going to come around who are playing out their trauma or doing whatever they're doing, I just don't know a better way to diffuse those things than to either be compassionate towards the person anyway, as difficult as that is, and as many times as I have utterly failed at that myself. So I can't even put myself up there as like I'm modeling good behavior. But I still know that is the right thing to do, and when I've done it, it's worked. Or laugh at it. Just find humor in it.
Yeah.
Because if you got a little kid crying and screaming and jumping up and down on the ground and having a tantrum, and you start laughing at them, they hate it worse, and then it just stops. I mean, I don't know. Maybe not universal parenting advice, but that's what I've seen.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, and I know it also plays into whatever, health problems or mental disorders, personality disorders they may or may not have, and I understand that. It's just, it just kind of boggles my mind how there are so many who, it's like I look at what so many of them are doing, and it's like they're floundering. It's like they think they're on a battlefield, and they think that they're winning.
I hear you, man.
All they are, they're just, they're dying and they don't even know it, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, you got to give them time to work through their stuff too,
Yeah.
I mean, that's.
So, but again, I want, again, the shout out to the atheist, Apostate Prophet, Shannon Q. There's another one called Agent of Doubt who's been on here a long, long time. So, keep up the good work, Chris.
Awesome, man. I will. Thanks for calling.
Yeah, I think there's phases to atheism, just like with trauma. Like you just, when you first start getting into atheism, you're like, I'm angry, I'm out of my religion, and I'm mad at it. then I think you calm down eventually, you know.
I think a lot of people do, you know, and I think our pleas for, you know, getting, you know, trying to get people to get to counseling or get some kind of service or something for that, it's difficult. It's difficult because it's not like every counselor out there knows what they're doing, and it's not like, you know, I mean, hell, there's even like counselors you find who are pushing religion on you. So it's you really got to pick and choose, and it's a little bit of a minefield coming out of any group and having to deal with.
Well, there's a lot of people that don't even know what secular means, like even therapists, and you're just like, okay, you're supposed to be the smart guys.
Yeah, it's supposed to be, I think, is the key part of that phrasing. All right, so we've got another caller now. I have no name. It's restricted, but they're calling about child Scientology. So let's see what we got going on here. All right. Hello, caller.
Hello, I'm Lynn. I'm Lynn. I guess they didn't get my call. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Lynn. Welcome to the show, and thanks for letting me know who you are. So how can I help you?
Well, I was going around in Amazon Kindle books one day, and deep in it, I found a bunch of books called Child Scientology.
Yep.
I don't know what they are. They're really weird. They look like to me like maybe a section of some other book that he wrote.
Is it pamphlet sized? It's kind of soft cover.
I don't know. I just was looking at the ebook.
Oh,
but
got it.
The funny part is that they're in about 5 or 6 languages, but not English.
Okay.
And given LRH's expertise on raising children, and I've read and heard on your show and others experiences that people have had growing up in Scientology, and also given the way he was with his children, I'm just really curious what he would have to say about raising kids. The advertising is something about how to raise independent, healthy kids.
Yeah, exactly. It's just Scientology advice on kids. Probably most of it came from his wife, honestly, and it's just branded with his name. But it's using, I mean, that's just guess on my part, but Hubbard was not a kid person, and he did not know any, you know, anyway. He was closer to his messengers than he was to his own kids in many, many ways. The advice the books offer are along the lines of, you know, they're just big beings in little bodies. They're adults in little bodies, and which is horribly bad advice about kids. I mean, it's so like just neglect. Oh yeah, it opens the door to neglect. It opens the door to abuse. There's a lot of unintended consequences of that statement. And then there's communication stuff. There is assist orientation kind of things. You know, like if your kid's getting unruly, take him for a walk or walk him around and have him touch things. And even little babies who are upset, have them walk around and touch stuff. And that's, you know, that's fairly harmless advice. You know, sometimes it works. I've actually done it with crying little babies, and it's really just diverting their attention. It's hardly deeply incisive child raising advice, you know. It's that kind of stuff that you're going to find in those pamphlets. And you're right, they are part of a larger book called the Scientology Handbook. And that's where that comes from.
Have any idea why they don't have an English version?
They do. I just don't know why it's not. I don't know where you found these books or came across them or something, but there's definitely an English version.
It's not on Amazon anyway.
Yeah, they're not big on selling ebooks and stuff on Amazon. That's for whatever reason, and I really don't quite understand it myself. The Church of Scientology is not big on printing ebooks of Scientology materials. They've done ebook versions of all of Hubbard's fiction works, but they don't go there when it comes to Scientology stuff. I think very few of them are put in ebook format, if any of them.
Maybe they just don't want to make it out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen all the fiction ones.
Yeah. Yeah, they actually had an iPod where they got them all loaded on there. You could buy an iPod at one point that had all of Hubbard's like pulp fiction novels on it, and it was just like, oh.
I want to break that iPod.
Yeah, we were selling them for like $400 or $500 or something in the church. It was a big deal when it came out. Hey, thanks, Robert, for that super chat. Appreciate it, man. Okay, so that is what I know about that. What do you think? Does that help answer that question at all?
Yeah, that's pretty much what I suspected was going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, thanks.
Cool. All right, thanks for calling. All right. You know, I am just enjoying the hell out of talking to folks tonight. Yeah. This is great, and it's all going so well. Everything's going through the board.
Woo.
You know, so much fun. I have not yet had a chance to do this yet, though. So I'm gonna say that at this point in the show, I believe we deserve some applause. Just had to do one sound effect tonight, guys. All right. Let's see. We've got another caller on the line. Let's go ahead and see what this is about. Okay. Hello, caller. You are on. Hello.
Chris?
Yes.
It's Joyce. It's Joyce.
Ah, hey, Joyce. Welcome back.
Hey, listen. Okay, I'm sorry. I just had to call back to kind of refute something that you didn't have the opportunity to address, and I think it's so important in today's age. There was a statement he made when he was talking about atheists, and he's like, "I'd rather have an atheist." He didn't like atheists, but I'd rather have an atheist than a Muslim.
Yep.
And that is such an insidious, racist, horrible thing for us just to let go, because like I'm shocked by it, actually, and I just don't think we can let that go, because it only reinforces the hatred that we are building in the United States and around the world to Muslims, and I just couldn't let it go. So I just needed to call up and say, totally inappropriate, and we need to address that.
No problem, and I agree with you. I didn't want to take it up with him getting some big, huge fight. I didn't know what this guy's backstory was, but it was definitely a noteworthy thing. And I'm glad you brought it up. I will say this on this. You mentioned racist. I will push back on that word, because Islam is not a race. It's a religion and a way of life for a number of countries around the world, all over the place.
Okay, fair
enough, right?
Fair enough,
so
yeah.
don't want to mix it up with that. That word gets thrown around too much. Okay. But you're absolutely right that prejudicial behavior based on class, race, religion, creed, etc., is just ridiculous. It is overgeneralized, broad nonsense. There are millions and millions and millions of Muslims in this world, and the vast majority.
Particularly it's the month of Ramadan, the most beautiful month of their religion. It's a terrible thing to say, so I appreciate you addressing it. That's all. That's
cool,
all
man.
I wanted to say.
Thanks, Joyce.
Thank
okay,
you.
good.
All right,
bye-bye. All right, so good. All right, and those are the callers in the queue right now. So wanted to thank Chris for that super chat. Thank you very much. And I wanted to, let's see, where was it? Yep, that's right. Good. Boom. I love super chats. Okay, yeah, so as I was saying, you know, this broad generality of everybody in this group is horrible and I wouldn't ever want to live next to them or talk to them or be friends with them or anything like that or relate to them in any way. Yeah, that's kind of for the birds. I was just sort of thinking to myself, now I'm challenging myself going, yeah, but what about neo-Nazis, Chris?
Yeah.
But I don't know that neo-Nazis are particularly what we're talking about when we're talking about broad classes of millions of people who are joined only by religion.
Yeah.
You know.
I think there's probably tons more Muslims than there are freaking Nazis.
Yeah, by way more. Way more. All right. Well, we are wow, we're an hour in here.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm gonna see if anybody else. I'm gonna give like a minute or two. If anybody else wants to call in, now's the time, because I think we're gonna move toward wrapping up. If not, I want to say back on that theme we started. I don't know if I gave you enough time to really contribute to that.
Yeah, that's true.
You have something more to say about life choices and what we might do to ideas on an equal playing field or a more opportunistic playing field?
Well, I think we need to bring back a lot of our social safety nets. Like they've been taken away and dismantled and lowered and lowered and lowered and lowered, and so it's just like we have such a rage against social safety nets now in this country. We got people convinced that they're bad somehow, and and of course there's always going to be some people that take advantage of it, but most people don't. Like true fraud, there's only about 2 to 5%.
Yeah, exactly.
Very minimal.
Well, it seems to be a thing with us that we really. Oh, by the way, thank you for that super chat there, Anil Riki. Anyway, thank you. It seems like we, part of the problem with us solving problems as a species, and I haven't figured this out yet totally, but we really seem to take these little tiny percentages of naysayers or problematic people or whatever, and we just blow them up as though that's like this big thing.
Everybody's like that.
Yeah, and I just don't, we got to solve that problem somehow too. Anyway.
Yeah, I think we have to somehow convince people that, I forgot who it was that said it, but the temporary displaced millionaires phenomenon that people, like she was talking about too, like people just think they're gonna suddenly be over being poor and get rich and stuff, and you're like, no.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody's a millionaire. They just don't know it yet.
99% of us aren't.
Yeah, they just don't have the money in the bank yet or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got some real firm reality adjustments we need to be making there. But anyway, I hope that we were able to offer some food for thought on that tonight, and it was wonderful interacting with you guys tonight. Thank you, everybody who called in. You all were wonderful. Thanks for you guys in the comments. You guys were wonderful. Super chats, of course, awesome. And with that, I think we will look at wrapping up here. So with that, here we go. We will see you guys, by the way, next week. And tune in this weekend. I will have a podcast about apostasy that I think you guys are going to find absolutely fascinating. I just need to get that edited and put up. And, of course, we will do our usual Q&A. All right, guys. Thanks for coming along, and talk to you next week. Bye-bye.
Good night.